can give you my perspective on the Cancer Center first, and then David can add his view in terms of our clinical operations and hem-onc. I think it's a huge challenge for all of us, and you know, we used to fight the disease and fight the scientific challenges ahead. Now there's some very real economic pressures as well. And it's particularly hard because the hospital's getting hit on the clinical side, and the research budgets through NIH are being hit at the same time. So it's a big challenge for all of us. I think the one thing that we rely on is the excellence of the people that we have here. We really have phenomenal faculty, phenomenal staff, phenomenal students. And their energy, their enterprise, their intelligence really makes a huge difference. And we're integrated within a really powerful hospital that has really its act together in terms of delivering the best care, being as efficient and as streamlined as possible. But it's going to be a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that whenever you're confronted with change, it's always important to go back to first principles. And the first principles of clinical care are you're going to do everything possible for that individual in front of you to help them be cured more often, to live longer, or to feel better. And when you actually break it down into its parts, there's only three things that you can do as a clinical team. And those three things are: you can be supportive, you can do what's considered standard, and the third is you can offer something innovative or experimental. And it sounds easy, but it's very difficult to maintain the best in all three areas. But if you break it down into its principles and into the main components of what you're trying to do for that individual in front of you, it actually starts to focus you. And I would say that the way that the MGH got through the 90s, where there was a significant amount of financial turmoil, was by focusing on those principles. And so you have a whole generation now of leadership that is incredibly focused on the principles across all the departments. And so when you talk to your colleagues in other departments that are affiliated with the Cancer Center, because this is a matrix organization, you're actually talking a common language. And it always comes down to that very personal interaction that you have between the clinician and the patient. And so when you focus on the principles, I think you will navigate these storms that are ahead, both economic and also and clinical storms as well.
There are a couple of things that we're doing. We've started a series of think tanks, if you will, which are Boston area based, tackling some of the issues, both on the research, on the clinical front, and we actually have a conference coming up on the economics of cancer care. And it's not the way it just used to be. It's not just about doctors, hospitals, and insurance companies anymore. There's some societal questions. What is life worth? How much of life is it worth paying for? How much is that little pill worth? How do you set priorities between drugs that work at different abilities? And how do we make some hard decisions as a society? So for example, we have a conference where we have the best and the brightest from the MIT Business School, the Harvard Business School, as well as clinical leaders coming together. And what's exciting is that there are people who haven't talked to each other before. You'd think that everybody has already said everything that there is to be said, but it turns out it's been a little bit of a goldfish bowl, and you can reach out in a place like Boston to people who have very, very deep insights in terms of how the economics of healthcare should be managed, but haven't really thought about the clinical revolution going on in cancer and the impact of that.
So the question is, how are we addressing the economic storm fronts, the economic storm coming with regard to cancer medicine? So one of the largest efforts we have here at the MGH Cancer Center is our care redesign effort. And what we are doing is looking at defining episodes of care and what goes into that episode of care so that we know exactly what we're doing and how much it costs. How much it costs not only to the patient, but how much it costs to the hospital, to everybody in the system. And defining what is the most outstanding way to deliver the best chance at the best case scenario. And then working backwards to look at the cost. Once we define that particular episode of care, we'll be able to then navigate some of those storms that are coming our way. I think what is critical to us in doing this is our development of a database that allows us to have access to what we've done, how much we've done it, and how much it cost, and who did what at which particular point along the episode of care. Once we have all of that in one place, we'll be able to help patients say, look, this is the best chance at the best case scenario. We're going to practice medicine in this way, and guess what? We can then negotiate a price for that particular episode of care for you.
And the economics of it is somewhat secondary at that point, because all you want to do is the best that you can. The economics plays in some ways and increasingly now, and you could argue that 5 or 10 years from now, we'll be giving better drugs that will be pills instead of IVs. We'll be doing less surgery. The surgery will be more focused. There'll be less side effects. And overall, it'll be much more economical and will have much better impacts. But to get there is hard, and innovation costs money. And to find the right treatment, to compare which is the better treatment, to have new drugs that cost a lot to figure out do they work and how do they work, that costs a lot of money. So in some way, the research budgets being tight are a little bit of a challenge, and we're doing the best we can. And again, we're very, very grateful to philanthropic gifts that really make this possible.